Osaka Castle 1598, the annual tournament before the Emperor, Ryota, age 22, the pride of his dojo, undefeated in 17 consecutive duels, stepped into the arena before 3,000 spectators. His opponent, nobody, a ronin from the mountains with no formal training, no reputation, no credentials. The duel lasted 8 seconds. Ryota froze, his mind went blank, his body refused to move, and the ronin's wooden sword struck him across the face once, twice, 3 times before he even raised his weapon. The crowd fell silent, then came the laughter, then the whispers, then the shame that would follow him for 3 years. Miyamoto Musashi wrote, "You can only fight the way you practice, but here's what nobody tells you, you can also only live the way you practice, and when you stop practicing, when you lose your discipline, your purpose, your identity, you don't just fail at your craft, you fail at being yourself." This is the story of a warrior who lost everything. Not to injury, not to superior opponents, but to something far more devastating. He lost himself, and the journey back from that darkness, that's the real warrior path nobody talks about. The question isn't whether you'll fall, it's whether you'll find your way back when you do. Chapter 1, The Awakening, the day everything broke. 3 days after the duel, Ryota sat alone in his family's estate, staring at the sword he could no longer bear to touch. 22 years of training, 17 consecutive victories, his master's praise, his father's pride, his village's hope, all destroyed in 8 seconds. The physical bruises on his face would heal in days. The wound to his spirit, that was something else entirely. He replayed the moment endlessly, the ronin approaching, the crowd watching, the signal to begin, and then nothing, not fear exactly, not even conscious thought, just emptiness, a void where his training should have been, his body frozen, his mind blank. And in that emptiness he discovered something terrifying. He didn't know who he was anymore for his entire life. Ryota had been the warrior, the disciplined one, the dedicated one, the one who would bring honor to his family name, training at dawn, practicing forms until sunset, meditating through the night, never drinking, never indulging, never straying from the path. His identity was his discipline, his purpose was his practice, his self-worth was his skill, and in 8 seconds all of it revealed itself as a lie, or worse, as something so fragile that one moment of pressure could shatter it completely. Week 1, the unraveling. He tried to return to training, his hands shook. Holding the sword, his master Tita-sensei watched with concern. "Ryota, you're gripping too tightly, I know," but he couldn't stop. Every movement felt wrong, mechanical, dead. "Perhaps you need rest." "I don't need rest, I need," but he didn't know what he needed. How do you fix something when you don't know what's broken? His fellow students trained around him. Some showed pity, others whispered. The youngest students, the ones who had looked up to him just weeks ago, now avoided eye contact. After an hour, T approached. "Go home, Ryota. Come back when you're ready." "I am ready." "No, you're here, but you're not present." The words hit harder than any sword strike. That night he didn't meditate, for the first time in 8 years. He skipped his evening practice. It felt like relief, like removing armor he'd been wearing too long. Month 2, the descent. He stopped going to the dojo entirely. At first he told himself it was temporary, just a few days to clear his mind, but days became weeks. He began drinking, not heavily at first, just enough to quiet the voice in his head that screamed, "Failure, coward, fraud." His father confronted him. "You shame our family." "I already did that. What's a little more? You dishonor your training." "My training betrayed me." The words erupted before Ryota could stop them. "I trained my entire life, and when it mattered, I froze. My discipline meant nothing. My practice was worthless. I was living a lie." His father slapped him, "Then rebuild." "I can't." "You mean you won't?" "I mean I don't know who I am anymore. The warrior I thought I was, he never existed. So who am I supposed to rebuild?" His father left without answering because he didn't have an answer. Month 4, the darkness. Ryota descended fully. He spent his days sleeping, his nights drinking, his family's money earned through generations of honorable service wasted on sake and gambling. The disciplined warrior who once woke before dawn now couldn't rise before noon. The one who ate simple meals now gorged on excess. The one who lived by Bushido now spat on every principle he'd once held. Sacred, and the worst part, he felt nothing, no guilt, no shame, just emptiness. One night, drunk and stumbling through Osaka's streets, he encountered a group of samurai from his old dojo. Ryota, one of them, Kenji, a former training partner, looked shocked. "Is that you?" Ryota was unshaven, unwashed, unrecognizable. "What happened to you?" "I found out who I really am," his words slurred. "Not the warrior everyone thought, just nothing." Kenji's expression shifted from shock to pity. That pity hurt worse than any insult could have. "Come back to the dojo. Master Tita can't fix me, nobody can. Because there's nothing left to fix." He stumbled away into the darkness, leaving Kenji watching in silence. Month 6. Rock bottom, a monk found him collapsed in an alley, barely conscious, having not eaten in 3 days. The monk, old eyes sharp despite his age, looked down at Ryota without judgment. "You're dying. Good, not of hunger, of absence. You've removed yourself from existence while still breathing. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You lost a duel. And because you couldn't face that loss, you decided to lose everything else as well." The words should have angered Ryota. Instead, they pierced through his numbness like a blade through silk. "Who are you?" "Someone who walked the same path you're walking, except I reached the end." "And what's at the end? Death or rebirth? Your choice, but you must choose soon. The path you're on only goes one direction." The monk stood. "If you want to find the other path, the one that leads back, come to Koyasan Temple, third bell after dawn." "Why would I come?" "Because despite everything, some part of you still wants to live, not just breathe, live. That part will bring you." The monk left. Ryota lay in the alley 3 more hours, staring at the sky, feeling nothing. Then slowly something stirred, not hope, not determination, just curiosity. What if there is a way back? Chapter 2. The principal sees rebirth through death. Koyasan Temple, 3 days later. Ryota arrived unwashed, hungover, half convinced this was pointless. The monk, who introduced himself simply as Bodhi Dharma, gestured to a mat. "Sit." For an hour they sat in silence. Ryota's mind screamed, his body itched, every moment felt unbearable. Finally, "Why am I here?" "Because you've lost yourself, and you think that's the problem." "It is the problem, no body." Dharma's voice was firm. "The problem is you think there was ever a self to lose." Ryota didn't understand. "Tell me, who were you before the duel? A warrior, disciplined, skilled, honorable, and those things, were they you, or were they what you did? What's the difference?" "Everything." Bodhidharma stood, walked to a small altar. "This is the principle of CI, but to be reborn you must first truly die." "I've been dying for 6 months. "No, you've been clinging to the corpse of who you used to be. That's not death, that's refusal to accept death." He lit incense, the smoke curled upward, shapeless, free. "The warrior you thought you were, the one built on 17 victories, on your family's expectations, on others' respect. That warrior never really existed. He was a construct, an identity built on external things." "Then what am I supposed to be?" "Nothing, everything. You don't need to be anything, you need to do." "I don't understand." "You can only fight the way you practice." Musashi said this, but do you know what it really means? Ryota shook his head. "It means identity doesn't exist in some fixed state, it exists in action. You are not a warrior who sometimes trains. You are your training, you are your practice, every moment, every choice." "But I already tried that and it failed." "No, you built an identity on outcomes. On winning, on others' opinions, on maintaining an image. That's not practice, that's performance, and performance crumbles under pressure." Bodhidharma's voice took on a quality that made Ryota feel he was speaking beyond just this moment. Throughout history, warriors have faced this truth that the self you think you are is illusion, that building identity on external success creates inevitable destruction, and in times you cannot imagine, others will face your same crisis. Young men who built everything on achievement, on others' approval, on maintaining an image, then lost it all in one moment of failure. At presence and purpose, we teach this forgotten wisdom, not how to never fail, how to rebuild after failure destroys you, because the warrior path isn't about never losing yourself, it's about finding the way back when you do. If you recognize yourself here, if you've lost everything and don't know how to return, this teaching awaits, not motivation to try harder, understanding of why you fell and how to rise differently. Join us on this path because Ryota's story isn't unique, it's universal, and the way back, though lonely, is walked by all who truly seek mastery. Ryota felt something shift, not understanding yet but recognition. So how do I rebuild? You don't rebuild who you were, you build from nothing. True, see, complete rebirth. That sounds impossible. Good. Then you're beginning to understand. Tomorrow we start. Chapter 3, The Test. Starting from zero, day 1. Today you will practice your first sword form. I've practiced forms 10,000 times. No, today you practice for the first time. Everything before, forget it. It's dead. You're starting as if you've never held a sword. This felt insulting, degrading, but Ryota had nothing left to lose. Bodhidharma handed him a wooden practice sword. The moment Ryota's hand wrapped around it, his hand trembled. Memories flooded back. The tournament, the freeze, the humiliation. He dropped the sword. Good, Bodhidharma said. What you're feeling, that's progress. For 6 months you felt nothing, now you feel fear. That's better than emptiness. I can't do this. Correct, the old Ryota can't. He's dead, but the Ryota being born right now, he has no past failures. He hasn't frozen in combat, he hasn't been humiliated. He's picking up a sword for the first time. That's not true, make it true. That's what practice, yes, not maintaining who you were, becoming who you choose to be in each moment. Ryota picked up the sword again, hands still trembling. First form, overhead strike. But not from memory, from presence. Feel the weight, feel your breath move. When movement comes naturally, Ryota raised the sword. His muscle memory tried to activate the perfect form he'd practiced thousands of times. Stop, you're performing, trying to do it right. There is no right, there's only now. Move. This was harder than any training Ryota had ever done. Every impulse screamed to execute the perfect form, but Bodhidharma kept stopping him again. But this time, no thought, just breath and movement. 50 repetitions, each one worse than they last by technical standards, each one more present. By the end, Ryota was exhausted, not physically, mentally, emotionally. How was that? Terrible. My form was awful, my technique was alive. For the first time in years you weren't performing, you were present. That's the foundation. Everything else builds from there. Week 2, the resistance. Every day the same practice, basic forms, no advancement, no progression, just presence. Ryota's ego screamed, I'm better than this, I don't need beginner's practice. That voice, Bodhidharma observed, is the old identity trying to resurrect itself. Let it scream. Don't listen, don't argue, just return to breath, return to movement. The old patterns fought hard, pride, shame, comparison to who he used to be. But slowly, through sheer repetition, something else emerged, not the disciplined warrior performing perfectly, just Ryota, present, imperfect, real. Week 4, the shift. During morning practice, something changed. Ryota raised the sword and for the first time since the tournament felt no tremor, no fear, no performance anxiety, just movement. His form wasn't perfect, but it was his authentic present. Bodhidharma noticed, said nothing, simply nodded. That evening, you're ready for the next stage. What's the next stage? Learning who you actually are, not who you were, not who you want to be, who you are when you're not trying to be anything. Chapter 4, Warrior Psychology, the science of losing and finding yourself. Month 2, understanding the pattern. Bodhidharma gathered Ryota and several other students, all men who had similarly lost themselves. Today I explain why you fell and why you can rise, the psychology of identity collapse. Ryota built his identity on outcomes, victories, others' approval, external validation. This is what modern understanding will call conditional self-worth. When self-worth depends on conditions outside your control. Victories, respect, success, you become a slave to those conditions, and when they disappear, you collapse. Musashi understood this. You can only fight the way you practice, not the way you wish. Not the way you imagine, the way you actually move through life daily. Ryota practiced being the winner, he practiced maintaining an image, so when circumstances required adapting, when pressure revealed the gap between image and reality, he had no practice in that. He froze, the neuroscience of breakdown. Modern science will discover what warriors always knew. Your brain creates neural pathways based on repeated Actions, every thought, every behavior, every response practiced enough times becomes automatic. Ryota practiced 17 victories, so his brain wired for winning. When losing occurred, his brain had no pathways for that experience. System crashed, identity shattered, but here's what else they'll discover: neuroplasticity. Your brain can rewire always at any age through any trauma. The Ryota who existed before the tournament, those neural pathways are weakening daily through disuse, the new Ryota forming. Through present practice, new pathways strengthen daily. You're not rebuilding the old self physically. Impossible, you're building entirely new patterns. That's CI biological rebirth. The Stoic understanding. The ancient Stoics philosophers from Rome taught similar truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Ryota gave his power to outside events. One duel's outcome determined his entire identity. That's not strength, that's slavery to circumstance. True warrior power comes from one thing: what you practice daily when nobody's watching. Not your victories, not your reputation, your actual daily practice. That's who you are. Musashi's complete teaching, Musashi's full wisdom. You can only fight the way you practice, but he also wrote asterisk, do not let your mind stop with the striking of your opponent's sword, asterisk, meaning don't attach identity to single moments. Don't let one victory define you. Don't let one defeat destroy you. Flow like water through all circumstances. The warrior who needs to win is weak. The warrior who can lose and continue unstoppable. Ryota absorbed this, finally understanding the depth of what he'd been learning. Chapter 5, The First Transformation. The jewel he couldn't lose. Month 4, a traveler arrived at the temple. Samurai seeking challenges, but Hama approached Ryota. He's issued a challenge. I'm offering you the opportunity to accept. Every fiber of Ryota's being screamed no. Memories of the tournament flooded back. I can't. Correct, the old Ryota can't, but the Ryota who has practiced presence for 4 months. What does he choose? I'm not ready. Ready for what? To win? To impress? To prove something? Those are old patterns. I'm asking, are you present enough to step into the arena and simply be there? Outcome irrelevant. Something in the question shifted Ryota's perspective. Not can I win, but can I be present regardless of outcome? I'll do it. The duel, the temple courtyard, 20 monks watching the challenger, a skilled ronin, older experienced. Ryota stepped forward, bowed, drew his sword, and waited. The ronin attacked fast, aggressive, testing. Old Ryota would have frozen or rushed to prove himself. New Ryota simply responded, not from memory, not from fear, from presence. The duel lasted 3 minutes, no decisive victor. Both landed strikes, both showed skill. When they separated, breathing hard, Ryota realized something profound. He'd been present the entire time. He hadn't frozen, hadn't performed, just been. Win or lose became irrelevant. The victory was being fully there. The ronin bowed deeply. You're the most present opponent I faced. Higher praise than any victory. Bodied Dharma approached after. How do you feel? I don't know, not proud, not ashamed, just here. Good, that's mastery, not achieving something, being something. Now you're ready for the deeper work. But one moment of presence wasn't mastery. What came next would test whether Ryota had truly transformed, or if he'd simply found another identity to perform. Chapter 6, Deep Training Arc, The Long Road Back. Month 6, The Daily Practice. Bodhidharma introduced advanced training, not in technique, in presence. The morning ritual. 4:00 a.m. Wake without negotiation. 4:15 a.m. Zazen meditation. 90 minutes. 6:00 a.m. Sword forms 2 hours. 8:00 a.m. Temple duties, cleaning, cooking. 12:00 p.m. Study philosophy, strategy. 2 p.m. Physical conditioning. 400 p.m. Free practice. 6 p.m. Evening meditation. 8:00 p.m. Reflection, sleep every day. No exceptions, no negotiations, no motivation required, only commitment. This is how you rebuild identity. Bodhi Dharma taught, not through dramatic change, through consistent present action. The shadow work, but discipline alone wasn't enough. You must face what you're hiding from. Body Dharma said during evening teaching, I'm not hiding. You're hiding from shame, from the tournament. You've trained presence but you haven't faced the wound that caused your collapse. He made Ryota describe the tournament in detail, every moment. Every sensation, every emotion. At first Ryota resisted, then the words came halting, painful, real. The freeze, the laughter, the disgrace, the shatter of his identity. Tears came not of weakness, of release. Good, the wound isn't weakness, the refusal to acknowledge it creates weakness. Now it's out, now it can heal. The meditation insight during deep meditation. Month 8, Ryota experienced something profound. His mind quieted completely. In that silence, awareness arose. This journey, this path from loss to rebuilding, warriors across all time walk this, the descent into darkness. The struggle back to light, the discovery that the self you lost was never real to begin with. At presence and purpose we honor this truth, that losing yourself isn't the end, it's the beginning of finding who you actually are beneath the performance. This teaching continues for those who have fallen, who failed, who have lost everything and don't know how to rebuild, not with motivation, with method, daily practice, present action. If you're in that darkness now, if you've lost yourself and can't find the way back, join us every week. The practices that rebuilt Ryota rebuild anyone willing to commit, because the way back exists but only for those who stop trying to return to who they were and instead build from presence who they are now. The thought passed but its truth remained embedded. Year 2, the identity that can't break. By year 2, Ryota's transformation was complete but different than expected. He wasn't the warrior he was before the tournament. He was more real, less polished, more present, less perfect. His technique improved, but that wasn't the point. His presence deepened. That was everything. Other students watched his practice, no longer impressed by perfection but by authenticity. How did you do it? One asked. How did you come back? I didn't come back. That person is dead. I built forward. Chapter 7, the final confrontation. Facing the past. Year 3, return to Osaka. Bodhidharma announced. You're ready for what? To face what you fled, the tournament, the arena, the moment that broke you. Fear rose immediately. I don't need to. Yes, you do. Not to prove anything, to complete the circle, to face the place of your death and show yourself you've been reborn. Reluctantly, Ryota agreed. They traveled to Osaka, the castle where the annual tournament was held. Same arena, same crowd, 3 years later, but this time Ryota wasn't competing, just watching, observing. Then a voice from the crowd. Ryota, is that you? His former master T-sensei. The recognition was complex. Shock, concern, curiosity. Master Ryota bowed. You disappeared. We thought many things. I lost myself, spent 3 years finding a way back, and did you? I found a way forward, not back. Tita studied him. You're different. I'm present. I wasn't before. Will you compete? Every instinct screamed no. The old fear rose. What if I freeze again? What if I humiliate myself? But then outcome is irrelevant. Presence is everything. Yes, the final duel. Ryota's opponent, ironically the same Ronin who had defeated him 3 years ago. The crowd murmured. The rematch. They bowed, drew swords, began, and Ryota was there completely, not performing, not proving, just present. The Ronin attacked. Ryota flowed. No freeze, no fear, just response. The duel was beautiful, not because of technical perfection, because of complete presence from both fighters. When they finished, mutual respect, no clear victor. The crowd erupted, but Ryota barely heard them because the victory wasn't the duel, it was being fully present in the moment that once destroyed him. Afterward, the Ronin approached. 3 years ago you froze, today you flowed. What changed? I stopped being the warrior who never loses and became the warrior who shows up. Win or lose, I'm here. That's mastery. Final reveal, the warrior truth. You can only fight the way you practice. Present day, Ryota, now 28, sat with Bodhidharma on the temple steps. I understand now what musashi meant. Tell me, you can only fight the way you practice doesn't mean perfect your technique. It means how you live is how you perform under pressure. For 3 years I practiced being the perfect warrior, so when perfection was required and I couldn't deliver, I shattered. Then I practiced presence daily, imperfectly, authentically, so when pressure came again I had practiced being present under pressure. No freeze, just flow. Exactly, your daily practice Is your identity not your achievements, not your reputation, what you actually do moment to moment alone when nobody's watching, the deepest truth, most warriors fear losing a duel, Bodhi Dharma continued, but the real loss is losing yourself, and that doesn't happen in dramatic moments, it happens in small choices daily, when you skip practice. When you perform instead of being present, when you attach your worth to outcomes, each small choice weakens the foundation, then pressure comes a duel, a crisis, a moment of truth, and the weak foundation collapses. The way back isn't dramatic either, it's small, consistent, present actions daily. Weekly, monthly, building new foundation from nothing. You lost yourself, Ryota. But that loss became your greatest teacher because now you know identity built on achievement is fragile. Identity built on daily practice is unbreakable, the samurai lesson. Teaching the lost 6 months later, a young samurai hero aged 20 arrived at the temple defeated, disgraced, lost. Ryota recognized him immediately, saw himself 3 years ago. Can you help me? Hero's voice was desperate. I can teach you what I learned, but you must do the work. I'll do anything, good, because the path back requires everything. Ryota led him to the practice grounds. Today, your first lesson, you can only fight the way you practice. Musashi said this. Do you understand it? I think so. No, you don't, not yet, but you will, because I'll teach you what my teacher taught me, that this wisdom isn't about sword fighting, it's about life itself, everything you do daily. Every choice, every action, every moment, that's your practice, and when pressure comes, you'll respond exactly how you've practiced. So if you practice being present, you'll be present under pressure. If you practice performing, you'll shatter when the performance fails. He handed Hiro a practice sword. This teaching continues here at Presence and Purpose, for those who have lost themselves and seek the way back, not to who they were, to who they can become through daily present practice. Every week we rebuild, not with motivation, with method, not with perfection, with presence, not trying to impress, just showing up. If you're ready, if you recognize yourself in this story, walk with us. Subscribe to this path, because the journey from lost to found is the warrior path everyone eventually walks. The question isn't if you'll lose yourself, it's whether you'll commit to finding the way back. Hiro bowed deeply. Where do I start? First, sword form, but not from memory, from presence, and will practice every day until presence becomes who you are, not what you do. He demonstrated. Hiro followed him perfectly, authentically present, and the circle continued. Student became teacher, lost became found, death became rebirth. You can only fight the way you practice, so practice being present, practice being real, practice showing up. That's the way back, that's the warrior path.